My name is George Nee. I am the president of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, and I have been asked by our coalition to be the moderator for today's press conference. This press conference is being brought to you by the Yes for Rhode Island Coalition, and I think it's important to start today for you to know who is in the Yes for Rhode Island Coalition. We have the Rhode Island State Council of the Arts, the Rhode Island Coalition for Arts and Preservation, the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, Clean Water Action, the National Education Association of Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals, the North Atlantic States Council, Regional Council of the Carpenters Union, Local 330, Iron Workers, Local 37, the Rhode Island Ports Coalition, Build Rhode Island, LIUNA, Laborers Union, New England Region, the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, the Rhode Island Building Trades and Construction Council, the Rhode Island Association of General Contractors, the Construction Industries of Rhode Island, IBEW 99, the Local Initiative Sport Support Corporation, the Rhode Island Painters District Council 11, United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 51, Unite Here Local 26, the American Council of Engineering Companies, and the Rhode Island United Way. I think, as you can see, this is a very impressive group of organizations, and I believe it's the first time in Rhode Island's history that we've ever had a coalition formed like this to support all the bond issues that are on the ballot. This is basically a get out the vote effort. We believe from the polling we've done that the voters are very supportive of these issues. So we are urging people to vote to approve all 7 because they are critical to improving the quality of life for all Rhode Islanders. Their approval will be an important factor in a quicker and stronger recovery in Rhode Island. These issues are critically important, but voting is also as critical. At this time, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our state treasurer, Seth Magaziner, to give an overview of these bond issues from a fiscal perspective. Seth, welcome.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor to be here. Rhode Island needs a recovery. We have too many Rhode Islanders who are out of work as a result of COVID-19 and the ensuing recession, and we need to ignite an economic recovery for Rhode Island. Every Rhode Islander can help our state recover by voting yes on all 7 questions on the special election ballot. These bonds will put thousands of Rhode Islanders to work and will improve our state's economic competitiveness and quality of life over the long run. That's why I voted yes on all 7 bonds, and it's why I'm encouraging all Rhode Islanders to do the same. I want to thank all of the coalition members for your advocacy on behalf of these bonds and for rebuilding the economy in Rhode Island. These 7 bond questions cover a range of different sectors of our economy and will have an impact in every corner of our state. But one thing that they have in common is that they will create good jobs in Rhode Island quickly and set us up for success over the long term. So these bonds will do things like improve our higher education facilities, expand the supply of affordable housing in our state, improve the quality of our roads and bridges, build out our port infrastructure, expand early childhood education facilities, support our arts and culture and historic preservation agencies that have been hit so hard by COVID-19, and expand our industrial facilities so that it's easier for employers to move to Rhode Island, expand in Rhode Island, and hire more Rhode Island workers. This is collectively an investment of $400 million directly into the Rhode Island economy that will create thousands of jobs. And I mentioned improving our quality of life. Question 2, the Green Bond will go a long way toward improving the quality of our natural environment by improving our parks and beaches, making our state more resilient in the face of climate change, and improving our natural environment and our drinking water as well. So all really good, worthy projects that we desperately need in Rhode Island that will put a lot of people to work. As state treasurer, I can tell you unequivocally that these projects are affordable for Rhode Island. Rhode Island needs an economic recovery, and we can make these investments without unduly increasing our debt load. How do we do it? Well, keep in mind that every year there are hundreds of millions of dollars of old bonds that roll off of our books. So old debt that we've paid down. So even if we approve all 7 of these bonds representing a $400 million investment, the state's total debt burden will not go up significantly. And in fact, we will still have capacity to issue billions of dollars of additional bonds in future elections if we choose to do so. Interest rates are at a historic low. Rhode Island has a strong credit rating. We have a AA credit rating, and other states and cities with our same credit rating that have issued bonds recently have gotten rates as low as 1.5%. So this is a good time to go to the bond market to make these investments. It's a good time, it's affordable, interest rates are low, and this is a time when our state desperately needs an economic recovery and to put more people to work. So it is an honor to be here today with these coalition members. I've been going all over the state, both in person and virtually, to get the word out to Rhode Islanders. Don't just vote in this special election, vote yes. Vote yes on all 7 bond proposals so that we can have a strong and broad recovery in Rhode Island. And I thank all of the coalition partners for your leadership and your advocacy. Election day is coming up fast, so let's get it done. Thank you all.
Thank you, Seth. Before I get into each panelist for each bond issue, I'd just like to notify the press and others that are listening to this event today that if you have a question that you'd like to give to one of the panelists afterwards, you can email that question to info@yes4ri.org. That's info@yes4ri.org. At this time, question 1, which is higher education facilities. Our first panelist will be Frank Flynn, who is the president of the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Healthcare Professionals. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, George. The Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals is proud to be part of the 7 questions, 1 answer, Yes for Rhode Island coalition. It's a great honor for me to be able to join so many groups of Rhode Island civic leaders to promote these important initiatives. The passage of these bonds will certainly improve the quality of life for all citizens of Rhode Island. Bond question 1 will provide $107 million of much needed support for our public institutions of higher education. This would include $57 million for the design, renovation, and construction of a fine arts center at URI. It would include $12 million for renovation of student support and classroom spaces at the Knight and Flanagan campuses of CCRI, and important to my members at Rhode Island College, $38 million for the renovation and design of the Clark Science Building on the Rick campus. Clark Science was built in the early 60s and has only had minor improvements since its completion. It's certainly showing its age. Many of the labs are relics preserved since the Kennedy administration. We want our students to be prepared for 21st century jobs and learn 21st century skills. We should not expect professors to teach and students to learn in outdated mid-20th century classrooms. This bond will have an impact on all Rhode Island College students, since each must complete a general science elective course. But it will be particularly helpful for our more than 1,000 students each year who major in chemistry, physics, science education, nursing, medical imaging, and other health and science related fields. Passing this bond will provide research space that supports scientific discovery at all levels. We cannot fail to provide these services and supports to our students. Supporting our public institutions of higher education by saying yes to question 1 and all 7 of these questions and all 7 of these bond proposals is a priority for our group and for all of our members. Thank you so much, George, for this opportunity, and we hope everyone votes yes on all 7 questions.
Thank you, Frank. Next, also on question 1, we're going to hear from Larry Pirtle, who is the president of the National Education Association of Rhode Island. Larry, welcome.
Thanks, George. Thanks, everybody. NEA Rhode Island is proud to be part of this broad coalition, Yes for Rhode Island. And on behalf of our 12,000 members, we strongly support all 7 ballot questions and encourage all Rhode Island voters to do the same. There are 7 questions and 1 answer, yes for all 7. These bonds invest in our community, expand and improve infrastructure, and provides for early childhood support and modernizes several higher education buildings. They will protect our natural resources and provide much needed support for our cultural and performance arts centers. And as we move post-pandemic, these bonds will help provide affordable housing and high-paying jobs immediately to lead an economic resurgence. Question 1, as Frank said, will provide $107.3 million for higher education. It is not enough to have great programs and staff, but buildings with classrooms and labs that provide students with 21st century learning space and technology. Bond money will help renovate and modernize the Knight and Flanagan campuses at CCRI. Opened in 1972 and 1976 respectively, they are in their 5th decade of use. Renovations and up-to-date classroom space and 2021 technology upgrades are much needed. Bond money will be used for a new fine arts center at URI and to renovate and expand the Clark Science Building at Rhode Island College. The fine arts building and program have long been an integral part of URI life in the surrounding community. Our members at CCRI and URI, Franks at Rhode Island College, provide students with a high-quality education, but they need the resources and modern classrooms and labs to continue that high level of instruction. Investing in our institutions of higher education will provide the infrastructure needed to make it attractive for our students to stay here in our state and prepare them for the high-paying jobs of the future right here in Rhode Island. And with the immediate new jobs this construction provides, it will help lead our economy going forward. And that will benefit all of us. We urge all of you to support not only question 1, but all 7 bond questions. There's 7 questions, but 1 answer, yes. Thanks, George.
Thank you very much, Larry. Our next panelist will be talking about the Green Bond, question 2. Alicia Lehrer, who is from the Woonasquatucket, she's the executive director of the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council. Alicia, welcome.
Thank you, George. I'm very happy to be part of the Yes for Rhode Island Coalition and the 7 questions, 1 answer campaign. As executive director of the Woonasquatucket River Watershed Council, I'm proud to speak on behalf of my organization, but also on behalf of my colleagues at Save the Bay, the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Clean Water Action, and our own Department of Environmental Management. These are the folks that are working for all of us every day to keep our drinking water, lakes, rivers, streams, and Narragansett Bay clean and beautiful for us, for our children, and for our grandchildren. Voting yes on 2, the Green Bonds, will provide $74 million to do just that. Let's talk about Narragansett Bay for a minute. The Green Bond is so important to the Bay because it will help restore the lands around it that keep it clean. The Bay is critical to our state's quality of life and our economy for boating, fishing, swimming, and attracting visitors to the state. It's one of the things that makes Rhode Island so special. Let's make sure we keep it healthy. I am, of course, especially excited about the Green Bond this year because there's a provision just for the Woonasquatucket River and its greenway. The Woonasquatucket River starts in North Smithfield and Gloucester and moves south through Smithfield, Johnston, North Providence, and Providence, where it flows through Water Place Park downtown and helps form the Providence River before joining the Narragansett Bay. The river and the parks and trails along it provide almost 300,000 people with recreational opportunities and an important urban wildlife corridor. During the pandemic, We had record numbers of people using the Greenway to get fresh air and exercise while enjoying nature, especially in our urban areas where it's needed most. The Green Bond will help us connect more communities to the river by expanding the Greenway and adding amenities like canoe and kayak launches, more parks, more outdoor classrooms so our young people can learn about and appreciate all the wonderful resources our rivers have to offer. Finally, nothing is more important than having clean water to drink, clean water in our lakes, rivers, and streams. We all know Rhode Island has incredible beaches and beautiful and productive Narragansett Bay. But did you know that 75% of us get our drinking water from surface waters protected by the state's forests? Voting yes on 2 will fund programs that improve forest health, which naturally protects clean drinking water. Voting yes on 2 will also help protect and restore Rhode Island's rivers like the Woonasquatucket, as well as our beautiful beaches and lakes. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren to protect Rhode Island's forests, clean water, working lands, and working waters through this bond measure so that future generations can enjoy it just like we do. So vote yes on 2 and vote yes on everything for Rhode Island. Thanks for having me, George.
Thank you very much, Alicia, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. Next, we have Courtney Nicolato, who is the president and CEO of the United Way of Rhode Island, to talk about bond question number 3, housing and community opportunity. Courtney, welcome.
Thank you, George, and the AFL-CIO and so many partners for leading this important campaign. United Way is proud to support not only question number 3, but saying yes on all 7 questions on March 2nd. I'm grateful for our state leadership, including our treasurer, for recognizing the critical importance of housing in our community. Affordable housing is an important component of a larger economic development strategy to strengthen Rhode Island's economy. Our state cannot succeed without adequate housing for our workforce and our community. Our housing crisis crosses income and generational lines. The cost of housing is rising faster than the incomes here in our state. Also, Rhode Island has the oldest housing stock in the United States, and our housing production rate is not keeping up with natural turnover. Saying it simply, our supply is not meeting the demand, not even remotely close. So how do we know that at United Way? It's because last year alone, 98,000 Rhode Islanders called 211 specifically because of a housing crisis. These are our neighbors who are on the verge of crisis or in crisis themselves. While the housing crisis existed long before COVID-19 came to our doorstep, the pandemic further demonstrated how critically important it is to have a home, a safe, affordable place to lay our heads and ensure roofs over our heads. So when state officials prescribed the simple act of staying home as a preventative measure of COVID-19, the importance of housing was clearly evident to all. However, for many of our Rhode Island neighbors, this is a challenge as the state is on the brink of facing mass evictions with rising unemployment accompanied by high cost of housing. By voting yes on question 3, the Housing and Community Opportunity Bond, Rhode Island supports the construction and rehabilitation of the homes and apartments, not only that we have, but the ones that we need for Rhode Island workers, families, seniors, and vets, a home that is affordable. Funding from past housing bonds have created 3,200 affordable homes for our neighbors in 34 different communities throughout the state. So by voting yes on question 3, we will create new and good paying jobs for our community. And by saying yes on question 3, we will also have the opportunity to leverage additional investments. These investments are for jobs and for builds that are shovel ready, so it starts immediately. The housing crisis and quite frankly, all of these bonds cannot wait. I hope you will join me in saying yes by not just question 3, but on all 7 as part of this important bond referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, and your work at the United Way has been tremendous. We really appreciate it. Next, we're going to hear from Mike Sabatoni, who is the president of the Rhode Island Building Trades and Construction Council, who's going to talk about bond issue 4, the transportation and state match.
Well, good afternoon, George. Thank you for emceeing this event. General Treasurer Magazina, all of my fellow panelists today, and all of our coalition partners. There really is 7 questions, but only one conclusion and answer, and that's to vote yes on Rhode Island's future. Today, in my capacity as president of the Rhode Island Building Trades, I've been asked to concentrate on question 4. And question 4, when you're looking at the description on the ballot, it actually says that the almost $72 million in the bond question that we're asking will match federal funds, which is not completely accurate, because the $71 million will actually leverage 4 times that and bring in $287 million in federal funds in an 80-20 match, so that we can continue to invest and modernize critical infrastructure and our corridors for commerce, and to improve the quality of life for all Rhode Islanders in a modern infrastructure. The other thing that question 4 has that I think has something in common, but is really unique, is the amount of money. When you combine both of those numbers together, you end up with $360 million of spending in the local economy, with workers, trade men and women that construct these projects on jobs that cannot be outsourced, through local companies represented, as you heard the coalition mention at the beginning, by the Construction Industries of Rhode Island, by the Rhode Island AGC, the over 400 companies that we have signed in and around the state of Rhode Island that would hit in fiscal year 2021 and 2022. The effects that this pandemic has had on the economy, it is government that needs to step up and lead the way and prime the pump for businesses in the community to come out of this pandemic. And this is a significant bond question with the ability to leverage hundreds of millions of dollars that will be pumped immediately into the Rhode Island economy, employing mostly Rhode Island men and women working for Rhode Island companies and the hundreds of companies that support them in an industry that we need to keep going, that is so critically important to the economy in the state of Rhode Island. So it is pretty simple from my perspective. The bond election season that we are in, vote yes on 4. And there are 7 questions, 1 answer. And it is very critical that we vote yes, because they all have one thing in common. I think most of them is they all have something to do with construction. So 7 questions, 1 answer, vote yes for Rhode Island, and vote yes on Rhode Island's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Very, very good prop there at the end. Next, we're going to hear from Jay O'Grady, who is the program officer for the Local Initiative and Support Corporation, who is going to talk about bond question number 5, early childhood and education. Jay, take it away.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it. I am pleased to be part of this broad and cross-sector coalition coming together and saying yes to investing in Rhode Island's future. And I am thrilled to speak on behalf of question 5, which is quite literally an investment in that future. Bond question 5 authorizes an issuance of $15 million to be allocated to the Early Childhood Care and Education Capital Fund. And this money will be used on improvements to existing early learning centers to address pressing health and safety concerns. It'll be used for the expansion of existing centers to add new childcare seats. And it'll be used to fund the creation of new centers altogether to help meet the demand for additional quality childcare options across all of Rhode Island. Childcare is truly a pocketbook issue for all families in our state, but especially for our working families. A 2019 survey by a prominent nationwide consortium of childcare resource referral agencies called Childcare Aware indicated that the average cost of an early learning center placement in Rhode Island was $11,000 a year per child. And keep in mind, for most families, this $11,000 a year is after taxes. Courtney, a few moments ago, when speaking about question 3, referred to how so many Rhode Island families are housing cost burdened. Well, I'm here to tell you that at $11,000 per year after taxes, $22,000 a year if you happen to have 2 children, we are looking at families that are childcare cost burden as well. At $22,000 a year for childcare, a family earning the state's median household income of roughly $61,000 will be spending 36% of their income on childcare costs alone. And that's before you get into housing, transportation, food, anything else. It's simply not sustainable. At a basic level, this is a supply issue. There are simply not enough quality early learning center seats available in Rhode Island today. And this is as much of a problem in our rural communities as it is in our urban core. You look at towns like Hopkinton, Richmond, Situate, Burrillville. These are our most rural communities. And all of them are childcare deserts in the infant toddler age range. And so too are cities like Woonsocket and Newport. Fundamentally, the issue is an access to capital issue. Early learning facilities are expensive to build. They're heavily regulated and expensive to build as a result. So Rhode Island has something called the Rhode Island Child Care Facilities Fund, which has been operating in the state for nearly 20 years. And what the Rhode Island Child Care Facilities Fund does is it provides technical assistance to early learning center operators or those who want to be operators to either expand facilities or open new facilities entirely. What the Early Learning Facilities Fund has learned over these last 20 years is that you can provide the greatest technical assistance in the world, but unless you have a capital source like that, which will be created from the passage of question 5 to actually fill development gaps, you can have the greatest plans in the world, but they will not turn into programs absent that capital source. A vote yes on question 5 will create that source. And so for the working families that need a quality and affordable childcare placement, for the children who will thrive in such a placement and, like their peers in Massachusetts, will enter kindergarten better prepared to learn and to sustain those learnings over a lifetime. And for the economy itself, an economy that works best only when everyone can participate in it and don't have to make the difficult choice of, should I stay home and care for my kids because it's simply not, it doesn't make sense from a cost perspective to take a job that will only pay for my childcare costs. We urge passage of question 5. On March 2nd, there are 7 questions before the voters. There's really only one answer. Please vote yes on Rhode Island's future. Thank you. And George, back to you.
Thank you, Jay. Our next panelist is Tom Parrish. Tom is the Executive Director of the Trinity Repertory Theater, and he is going to talk about the bond issue number 6, which is the cultural arts and state preservation. Tom, take it away.
Thanks, George. The Rhode Island Coalition for Arts and Preservation, a grassroots group of more than 25 cultural, tourism, and historic preservation organizations from across Rhode Island working together in support of question 6, is excited to be a part of the Yes for Rhode Island Coalition and the 7 Questions, 1 Answer campaign. The thing we know in our sector is that arts plus preservation equals jobs. Investing in our state's arts and preservation community is a win for all Rhode Islanders. While the $7 million in bond funding proposed in question 6 supports the state's arts and preservation community, it's important to note that this investment will really benefit all Rhode Islanders. This funding will be used to help nonprofit organizations across the state embark on major construction, renovation, and rehabilitation projects. These infrastructure projects will create hundreds of good, well-paying jobs for Rhode Islanders. We also know that investing in arts and preservation works, and we have the data to prove it. Voters overwhelmingly approved a similar $35 million bond initiative in 2014. That initial investment sparked a groundswell of construction and renovation activity across the state, supporting nearly 70 construction and renovation projects, creating more than 1,500 local jobs, and generating nearly $90 million in economic activity that benefited 350 Rhode Island companies from 38 cities and towns. The organizations supported by this bond also have a massive statewide reach. More than 1.7 million individuals, including more than 400,000 children and nearly 20,000 artists, benefited from that 2014 investment. There remains over $70 million in need for additional cultural facility investment in the state, however, which is why the $7 million continuation of this grant program is so important. Rhode Island's art and preservation community was hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic and needs investment now more than ever. From Woonsocket to Westerly, our arts and preservation community has served as a statewide economic engine that has been creating good jobs, boosting our tourism efforts, and improving our quality of life for many years. Between Trinity Rep and the Rhode Island Philharmonic alone, we support $34 million in economic activity and directly or indirectly employ nearly 900 full-time workers. As we embark on a statewide effort to recover from the devastating impacts brought on by the pandemic, it is more important than ever to make sound investments in our proven assets through Question 6. Rhode Island is home to one of the most diverse creative economies in the nation, and this bond and the other 6 will help our state come back even stronger, which is why we are urging people to vote yes on 6 and yes for Rhode Island now through March 2nd.
Thank you, Tom. Your organizations bring a lot of joy to people's lives, so it's very important to have the arts being on the ballot this time. Our last question and our last speaker in the cleanup position today is Lori White, the president of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, to talk about question 7, which is the industrial infrastructure bond question. Lori, welcome.
Thank you very much, George. It's a pleasure to be with you today and with the General Treasurer and with my fellow members of the coalition. So on behalf of the Rhode Island business community, we are very pleased today to be able to join you to come out and be supportive of question 7 on the ballot this year on March 2nd. And let me tell you a little bit about what question 7 does and why it's important. This money, $60 million, will go towards needed improvements and upgrades in our infrastructure at Quonset, Davisville, and the Port of Davisville. So we're talking about the industrial park down there, the business park, and it's home to more than 200 companies and 12,000 jobs. I think we're all pretty much familiar with Quonset, Davisville. It's right off of Post Road in North Kingstown. It's a statewide facility. And more importantly, it's a place where the nation's submarines are being built, the Columbia-class submarines that will be used as part of our nation's defense. So in addition to that, the bond proceeds will be used in 2 separate specific ways. First off, to assist the business park itself with the development of additional shovel-ready sites. So we're talking about places where businesses can come in and readily invest, shovel-ready, so that our construction teams, our construction industries can get right to work and build new buildings, facilities, manufacturing centers, distribution centers, jobs that provide high wage, high indexed jobs. And so in addition to the full-time jobs that we're talking about long-term at Quonset, we're also talking about the ability to seed a great number of construction jobs with these pad-ready sites. So that's an important element where the bulk of the money will go for question 7. Further redevelopment within the park itself, which is a real Rhode Island success story, no doubt about it. And lots of companies down there that are really important to our future economy. And again, presenting jobs that are good, high-paying jobs with upward potential, and particularly in the manufacturing and distribution center. So we're really supportive of that. The second aspect of question 7 is important upgrades to our port facilities at Quonset. So I'm sure many of our members know that down at Quonset, you can really take in 2 aspects of this port and economic development infrastructure, the business park itself, and then on the other side, the port, which, by the way, is one of the busiest ports on the East Coast, and also one of the best ports anywhere in North America for the importing of vehicles. So I, for one, live in the southern part of the state, and when you travel up Route 4, and I think all of us can identify with this, seeing the large vehicle carrier trucks, coming off, from the port and traveling up the highway, delivering vehicles all over the East Coast. So it's a major benefit to have that port facility here in Rhode Island. It creates a lot of jobs, and it furthers our distribution capabilities here in Rhode Island. So this money specifically is going to be used for infrastructure upgrades. And I noticed from my fellow panelists that this is a continuing theme, really, among all of the bond issues, that we're trying to remedy a lot of our infrastructure in Rhode Island that is old, that is considered relics, that really needs modernization and continued upgrades in order to be able to fuel the jobs and fuel the economy of tomorrow. So the monies will be used to upgrade one of the port facilities, the terminal facilities, that hasn't been upgraded since, that was originally built in the 1950s during the Kennedy president, that era, many, many, many years ago, and continues to need additional work and upgrade. And then also to build on another terminal, which very excitedly is going to handle a lot of the wind turbines that are coming in. And we in Rhode Island, as all of us know, are really excited about the fact that Rhode Island has opened up and is a national and international leader in offshore wind. So we need that port area to be really first class so that we can import and also move around all of the parts necessary for offshore wind, and also dredge the channel there to make sure that these very sophisticated ships and vehicles can come in, use the port, do the lay down area right around the port itself, where a lot of the assembly of the turbine blades and the like are done. So offshore wind, we're really excited. It's created a lot of jobs in Rhode Island throughout the supply chain. So that's really a really important area to continue to invest in and to continue to propel on all fronts. So those are the 2 main uses of the $60 million that we're talking about for question 7. And the chamber and our grouping of business leaders were really excited about supporting all of the bond issues, because we're likening it to the WPA back in the World War II era during the Great Depression, that was established by FDR back in the day to make needed infrastructure improvements. So taken together, all 7 bond issues, 7 questions, 1 answer, we say vote yes. It's a very important stimulus measure, much like we saw back in the 30s under FDR. We are very excited at the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce to be able to look at this package of bonding as a very specific way to provide a needed stimulus to businesses in Rhode Island, small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and larger enterprises such as Electric Boat that are working on the next class of submarines, to be able to continue to thrive and to get through this very, very difficult time that we are in right now due to COVID-19 and the pandemic. We're optimistic that we are rounding the corner, but this portfolio of bonds, we believe, and by the way, this is a really favorable time for borrowing, as our general treasurer pointed out a few moments ago. So we are pleased to be part of this coalition. 7 questions, 1 answer. We say vote yes. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Lori. I appreciate your organization's support for this whole thing. It's very important. I just want to give another reminder that if you have any questions for any of the panelists, you can send them to info@yes4ri.org. Just in closing, I think you've heard some compelling arguments from leaders from a cross section of some of Rhode Island's finest and respected organizations. And if you've been paying attention, you have probably come up with the idea that this is about 7 questions on March 2nd and 1 answer. So that's the purpose of our Yes for Rhode Island Coalition. And we would urge people to vote by mail now at your city and town halls, which are open now, or on March 2nd. Hopefully beforehand, because it's a lot easier to do it that way now. So at this time, we will close the formal part of this, and there are questions. We'll be handling that. Okay, I have a question here for anyone on the panel who wants to answer. If passed, how do you expect these questions would impact the Rhode Island economy?
These bonds would impact the economy in a few ways. First and most immediate, upfront construction jobs, as Mike mentioned earlier. The vast majority of this $400 million is going into construction projects of one type or another. A general rule of thumb is that every $1 million spent on construction projects equates to about 20 jobs for a year. And so, at $400 million, that would equate to upfront jobs numbering in the neighborhood of 8,000, which is a big number for Rhode Island. Now that'll be over the course of a couple of years, but starting very soon. Longer term, there will be additional economic benefits. As Lori mentioned just now, question 7 for the ports and for industrial sites will make it easier for employers to expand their operations in Rhode Island, including the offshore wind industry. The arts bond will help expand the capacity of arts organizations once they're able to reopen in person to accommodate more people. The bonds to improve education facilities, both question 1 and question 5, the early childhood bond, these will have significant impact on the skills of our workforce, which again will make this a better place for employers to come, to expand, to hire Rhode Islanders as opposed to people from other states. And the green bond will be fantastic for our tourism and hospitality industry and for our quality of life generally, and making this a place where people want to live and work and raise a family. So those are just a few examples. I could give others, but I think the common theme here is a lot of good construction jobs up front, and then a lot of follow-on benefits in the coming years and decades from a more skilled workforce, a better quality of life, and a better environment for businesses to expand and locate and hire more people.
From your perspective, the question is, if approved, would these questions raise taxes?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we pay off old debt every year in the order of hundreds of millions of dollars. Last year alone, Rhode Island paid off more than $200 million of old debt. So adding this $400 million this year is not going to significantly increase the state's debt load and should not have much of an impact on the state budget. I know that sounds strange to people. You're adding $400 million of bonds that won't have much of an impact to the state budget. Well, that's because we're paying off old debt at the same time. And again, interest rates are very low, which means that these bonds are going to be much cheaper than some of those old ones that we're paying off. So we look at this very closely. Our goal for Rhode Island in our office is that we don't want the state's debt costs to exceed 7% of the state budget in any year. That's the limit that we try to stay below. And our projections show that even if all of these bonds are approved, we will stay below that 7% limit. So this will not have a significant amount of stress on the state budget at all. And in fact, will help ignite an economic recovery, which will improve our revenue going forward just from more people working and earning more. So I do not expect that these bonds will lead to increased taxes, nor do I think that they will create stress in the state budget. This is a smart investment for us to make that will yield dividends for the state in the long run.
Okay, thank you, Seth. Question came in, is this the largest coalition that's ever been formed to work together on referendums? And the second part is there historical precedent for this kind of broad coalition? I don't know if it's the largest coalition that's ever been formed. There may have been larger coalitions on maybe one or two specific bond issues. I think where this is historic is that it's a coalition of some very significant organizations, many organizations that are working on all 7 bond issues at the same time. In my recollection, I don't think that's ever happened before, and I think that's why this is so significant. Okay, that is all of the questions. I want to thank the panelists, not just for their presence today, but for their commitment to their organizations and to our state, their involvement every day, making Rhode Island a better place to live and work. And I'd say at the end of the day, we have 7 questions and 1 answers. Thank you very much for your time today.